welcome to Parents Make a Difference. I'm your host, Josie PV. Today's guest is part of the Snowbirds Alumni Association and is an entrepreneur and does many other things. But when I think of the Snowbirds, I think of going to the CNE and watching the air show and watching the show uh, with those jets flying over us, and I'm just at awe. So today's guest is Richard Cooper, and he's done many things in his life, that being one of them, and many more that he's going to share with us. Welcome, welcome, Richard, to Parents Make a Difference.
Glad to be here. Thanks very much.
You're an entrepreneur at heart. Uh,
Yes,
you've done a few things now. It's wonderful. You're still flying jets.
I am. I started flying in 19. I originally wanted to fly helicopters, but I couldn't afford to do it in 1973. So I started flying fixed wing, and then eventually got a helicopter license in 1986, and then have been flying both ever since then.
Yes, and I had the pleasure of taking a trip with you in the helicopter. Thank
Yes, we did.
you so much. That was my first time, and I loved it. So I got a little taste of what your passion, your love of being up there in a helicopter was amazing. Was amazing.
Yeah, it's been a passion of my entire life. I've sometimes forget how long I've been flying. It's been so many years, but it's a great pastime. It's a great occupation. I always try and encourage a lot of people to get into it because it's a great way to be able to build confidence in yourself, strengthen kind of mental capacity as well. And a lot of people are fearful of it because they think it's very difficult, and it's really not. It's like anything else. Nobody sits down and learns. Nobody sits down at a piano and plays a song. It's all about practice and learning. It's exactly the same thing.
Great advice for our parents out there, because something that seems so big out of our league, it's possible, right? I love your attitude that
Very possible.
it's possible.
Oh yeah. I encourage people even later on in life. I bump into a lot of time people who've already had kids and they're now their kids are maybe teenagers or whatever. I encourage them to get involved in it. It's a great skill set to be able to pass on to your kids, and also something that you can get them involved with. A lot of good things about parenting is getting your kids involved in something either that you're interested in. I always say people should be passionate about something. Doesn't matter what it is, but they should be passionate about something. And to pass that on to your kids is a very important step.
Was anyone passionate about that before you, or that's just something that you had before?
No, it's funny actually, because a lot of people ask me because obviously I've been flying for a long time, since 1973. Um, and there was nobody in my dad was a Navy guy. My grandfather was in the Army. Um, Nobody was actually interested in the Air Force. I don't even know how I got. It might have been one time when I was young. A guy landed a Bell 47. That's the same kind of helicopter you'd see on the TV show MASH in a field behind some houses near us. And I thought, wow, is that ever cool? And I thought, I got to do that someday. And so obviously, when I tried to do it, the cost back in 1973 was $10,000, which nowadays does not sound like a lot of money. But back in 1973, um, that would have been, oh, more than that would have been 2 years, 3 years salary for somebody. It was huge. So, but I never gave up on the dream. I thought, I'm going to try finding some other way to do it. And that's when I started going into fixed wing, and eventually I persevered and got to fly helicopters as well.
Amazing, amazing. Now you also have started up other companies, sorry, that wasn't starting off a company, but you started different companies. In addition to that passion, you've had other passions. What other things have you done?
Well, when I I got out of school, I went to college. I didn't go to university. I went to college for electronics. I graduated as electronic technologist. When I was in high school, I had a full-time job, and then when I got out of I had a part-time job. I used to work at the hospital when I was in college, and then got out of college and started working at a company working on inertial navigation systems, which was a guidance system that they used on airliners, and then eventually started working on the cruise missile program for the U.S. government. But while I was doing that, I was working on a project on my own on the side in the evenings, and I also had a part-time job. I had a job fixing arcade games, pinball machines, and stuff like that in the evenings. In the evenings, I wasn't doing that. I was at home designing an electronic system to work on the large refuse vehicles that you would see. The typical application, it's been used in many, many other applications. The typical application would be the ones you see with the front forks where they go in and they pick up the large refuse bins and they dump them. They're called front end loaders. They had problems because of the fact the truck is so wide and so long, and they back up all the time because they drive into the bin and then they have to back up. They drive into another bin, so they're constantly backing up. Lots of opportunities for accidents. So I designed a system back in the early 80s to go on the back of this truck so that fully automatic. As soon as the truck goes into reverse, the system goes on, and anything gets within about 6 feet of the back of the truck, the driver gets an alert, and the brakes are applied at the same time, stopping the truck. So I did that for a number of years until I basically ended up having to leave the company I was working for and went in and started a company called Cardinal Couriers, which is a land-based courier company that operates in Ontario and Quebec and out to the East Coast. And we do, for some customers, go out as far as BC. Um, During that time, I had lots of other interests. Got interested in the paintball game and started a company called Great Canadian Adventure Game because at the time when they were playing paintball, which we used to play when we were kids, we used to play Capture the Flag, is what the game was really called. We used to use BB guns, which wasn't the safest thing to use. Um, so the game used to use a marker called a Nell spot, which was used to mark trees and cattle, like for cattlemen, and it used real paint. So the idea was to design, first it was a single shot. It would only fire one paintball every time you pulled the trigger, and then you'd have to use a bolt action to load it up again. And it used to hurt a little bit. So with the help of my brother and a friend, we in my parents' basement, we designed a repeating paintball gun that nobody had ever done before, and started a company called Great Canadian Adventure Game, and then developed a water-soluble paintball. So the game everybody is playing out there now actually started really in my parents' basement. I wasn't living there at the time, but I mean, we would go there because my dad was a tool and die maker, so we had some machines and stuff like that. And we manufactured this paintball gun and then started selling franchises all through the United States, Canada, Europe, Australia, all over the place. Um, and then while we were doing that, I had another idea. We used to build replicas of Ferrari Daytona Spider. So nobody would remember it, but there used to be an old TV show, Miami Vice, and it had a Ferrari Daytona Spider on it. That wasn't a real Ferrari Daytona Spider, it was a replica. And it was a Corvette chassis with a fiberglass body on it. So we used to build those in Toronto. Also started a company called Pianos Past, where we took old pianos like Steinways, Bosendorfers, other stuff like this, and we would restore them and sell them. Um, at one time, started a small newspaper called Bingo Banner, which we distribute through bingo halls. I've had kind of an eclectic collection of businesses through the years. I'm still doing Cardinal Couriers, still doing the land development. We do build condos in downtown Toronto. Still have the electronics company, still selling the sensor system to people that have been doing it now for 50 years. It's been long. It's hard to believe, but so that's kind of a quick summary.
Wow, that's a lot of great things that you've had passion for. You've moved in so many different directions. It sounds like it's keeping you giving you good energy because, I mean, like you said at the beginning, it's important to find something you have passion for. And I know flying is definitely one of your passions, but in order to start these businesses, they must have been something you felt passionate about. I did a little bit of paintballing with my boys. You're right, it hurts. But they love that. They enjoy that. But for the parents out there, I mean, it's important that we as parents, we find passion too, because our example is more important than actually what we say. They say kids listen, kids um, watch more of what you do than hear what you say. And so, wow, that's a great example to your own kids to see you out there making things happen in all these different avenues and all these different businesses.
That's very true. And a lot of people don't appreciate sometimes the sort of expression lead by example is extremely important because they really do take note of what you are doing. And although the kids sometimes fight back, and I would tell people this all the time, kids will fight like crazy. Oh, I don't want to do this. I don't want to do that. But I remember from my own childhood, my parents would want to do something, and I'd be like, oh, I don't really want to do this. I don't really want to do that. But I'd always have fun when we finally got there. And I realized that kids will fight and push and everything like that. But our job is not to keep them from going in the ditch. It's just to keep them from going over the cliff. You got to let them know where the edges of the roads are. They need to find their own way. I've never believed in putting like a rope around them so tight that they can't move. That doesn't allow them to grow. And typically, when you restrict people too much, they fight back. Whereas you've got to have a little bit of balance, and that's an important thing. You need to have a bit of balance in working with kids so that they understand. You know what? I'm going to let you make your own mistakes. You're going to find out. I I laugh because I used to think when when I was 18, I didn't think my dad knew very much at all. But by the time I was 21, I couldn't believe how much he'd learned in only 3 years.
Oh, that's funny. It's true. They're so knowledgeable. We're so knowledgeable, but are they listening? That's another issue. Um, so that's so thinking about all the things you've done. Were your parents influential in how you allowed yourself to be creative and to explore these different ideas, or maybe someone else in your life that inspired you to go in some of these directions?
Well, you know what? I remember well, my dad. He was always he was always working on something. He worked at AV Row as a tool and die maker on the Avro Aero project. And when that closed, he had to go and find a job somewhere else for a while, and then ended up going back. But he never gave up. I remember when I was a really young kid, he used to make playground equipment, build playground equipment in the basement of our house. He taught night school at one point. Like um, he was always there. I never wanted for anything, and my parents never really restricted me. They always kind of encouraged me to try stuff. I remember it was the same for flying. I mean, I did not come from a wealthy background at all. My parents were kind of your typical sort of mid mid sort of lower class income family. We didn't have a lot of money. But my parents never really restricted me. I remember going to my dad saying, I want to get my pilot's license. And he said, well, it's your money. You can do what you like with it, which was, hey, I mean, I'd always worked. I worked when I was in high school. So I always had, I always had some money. I was never into the going out Friday nights drinking and Saturday nights. That was just never my thing. I used to spend my time working on stuff and having fun with friends, but always with the idea of what to do next. Like solving problems has always been something that's always intrigued me. So for me, the drive to get ahead and to do things has always been there. And I think a lot of that came from my dad, by example. I was very fortunate. I came from a very, very good family. My parents, I never remember my parents exchanging a harsh word once, ever. Um, they never really held me back. They always encouraged me to try stuff and to do stuff, and that through life. And I did the same thing with my kids. I would try and encourage them not to be held back. The only person who's never failed at something is the person who's never done anything. I've had lots of failures, lots of failures. Has it slowed me down? Nope. Every single failure I've learned something at. And that's what I say. When people say, "Oh, yeah, I made a mistake," I said, "No, no. You only made a mistake if you do it twice. If you do it once, it's a learning experience." And that's what you need to impart on your kids. Like they have to realize, not the crazy stuff, of course. I mean, that's a parent's job. Like I said, our job is to keep them from going over the cliff. I mean, you got to keep them safe, but they need to find out and make small mistakes, sure, because that's how you learn. That's how you grow.
I love that attitude. It's so true, and we have to do it with intention, right? I mean, even just the idea of try something new. I mean, as a teacher, I try to tell the little ones that. I mean, as myself, I try to remind myself I need to try something new, and that's what I try to also instill in my own boys, to try something new. Um, when you're trying something new, that means you're taking that. You're always fearful of something new, but it's opening up new adventures. And you've tried many adventures. And so you've had that attitude try something new. It's okay to try something new. It's okay that it's fearful because it always is scary at the beginning. It
Oh,
always is.
extremely.
And I love the way you say, sometimes you win and sometimes it's not a lose, it's kind of a learning experience. And I read a book, I think it was John Maxwell, that says sometimes you win, sometimes you learn. And it's an attitude. I love your attitude because really, I bet you that is what propels you and has helped you to overcome many obstacles because everybody goes through them and open up new businesses and continue on with different businesses because in reality, we all go through stuff. It's not what happens to you, but it's how you deal with it. And that's what I want to instill in our kids. So, parents out there, I mean, it's not what happens to you, it's how you deal with it. If you say, sometimes we win and sometimes we don't lose, we learn. Sometimes we learn. If we take it as a learning experience, okay, this is just going to help me with um, you know, the next obstacle, the next adventure, the next whatever that is. And so your example of doing that and saying that and being that, it just it shines right through. Even when we were just talking, I'm like, I like your attitude. That's the attitude that helps people to move forward no matter what they're going through, that helps them achieve some great victories in their lives, right? Because we
It's
all
very, yeah,
we all
it's
need.
true. And as much as parent, you mentioned about teachers, and teachers are very, very important. Um, a good teacher in the life of a child can make a huge difference. There's no doubt about it. And we're fortunate that there are a lot of teachers out there that truly do care. I personally, my youngest son is actually an elementary teacher. I asked him, I said, "Oh, I'm surprised you're elementary, not high school." And he says, "No, I want to get them when they're young enough and they'll still listen." So and I have personal friends who are teachers, and I know a lot of teachers, and the ones that like truly care, and there's a lot of them, make a huge, huge difference in kids growing up. The same as with parents. I mean, I've always encouraged the kids. I've always tried to make them think. You're right about the fact that you're right about sometimes you win and sometimes you learn. That is exactly, I always say, same with a different vernacular, but it's true. Everything is a learning experience, and you've got to constantly try and get your kids to be reaching out and experiencing things, and which is not an easy thing to do. It's extremely tiring. It's exhausting. You've got so many life balances in your life. You've got I've done motivational speaking at high schools for students on different subjects, and there's so many things trying to impart on them and trying to get their attention. And that's probably one of the most difficult things is trying to get their attention because they are constantly being distracted because there's so many things going on. Trying to get them to focus sometimes can be a challenge, a real challenge, and it requires a lot of energy, a lot of energy. Everybody's life is broken up into thirds, right? That's what I used to tell the kids. One third just sleep. Okay, the other two thirds, you're either working or you're spending your time with somebody. Find something you like to do, and you'll never work a day in your life. Find somebody that wants to spend time with you as much as you do with them, and you're going to be happy. And then you'll have a happy life, and you can focus on all the things you want to do. Looking at that and thinking, well, geez, one third of your life you're working, the other third you got to break between your family life. Okay, your wife or your husband, they require attention just as much. Now you got to get your kids in there, plus all the other jobs you got to do. It can be a very, very challenging thing. The only way that keeps me going, I mean, I wake up in the morning. People today, when I was out said, "Oh, how are you today?" I said, "Oh, if I was any better, I couldn't stand it." I mean, I woke up this morning. That's a start to a great day. The first day I don't wake up, that's a bad day. Haven't had one of those yet. I had a fellow call me this morning as an employee at the courier company, and he said, "Oh, before I get into some of the work stuff, I want to talk about some personal issues and problems he has at home." And I said, "Yeah, no problem." So we talked about it. Afterwards, he says, "Oh, thanks very much. I feel so much better now, having spoke to you about it." As parents, sometimes we need to support other parents. He has an issue with one child who's has a medical condition. Um, so it, helping kids maybe just not it's not just our own children, but helping other parents with their own children sometimes is important too.
I find
So it's challenging, but all you have to, but I wake up in the morning happy, and it's not people people think, oh, everything's perfect in my life. It is far from perfect. I have troubles and problems every single day, but you know what? I don't let them get me down. I just keep thinking to myself, you know what? God gave us sunrises and sunsets. You know what? Every day is a new day. And that's why I look at it. Hey, maybe today wasn't the best day, but tomorrow probably will be.
love that, love that, and it's true. It's like the sun will always come back up, so things will always change. Whatever we're going through, if it's a tough time, any parents out there something hard, tomorrow's a new day. The sun will come back up. The sun goes down, but it comes back up. And sometimes it's just day by day, day by day. But that's, it's great to hear stories like yours, just hearing your attitude and some of the achievements and some of your thoughts on how you deal with things and what you say to yourself. Because as parents, as people, we learn from each other, and here on Parents Make a Difference, we're learning from each other so that we can help our kids succeed and we can help ourselves move into different directions because having passion for something also gives us great energy that we can be better around our kids. So it's great that you went out and looked for what you're passionate about because then you could be in a better attitude around your kids. You can have a better energy around them because you're excited about something. We need to get excited about life. And so find
Very
thing to do that excites us is important. And I agree with you in the sense that when you said sometimes, it's hard to help our kids. They fight back.
good.
We need to do it with intention. I know just the other day I was like, oh, my son was on the devices more than I want him to be on it because it's, hey, they're hanging out with their friends. It's great. They're gaming and there's nothing wrong with that. Um, but need to put your interest in other things also, and it seemed like that was his only interest. I'm like, okay, this isn't good. So I'm like, I'm trying hard. I'm trying to figure this out. I'm thinking, well, what else does he like? We tried one thing, we tried another. I brought him to he wants drums, so I brought him to classes to learn how to play the drums. Oh my goodness, he was glowing. I don't even have to get him to practice. He's practicing. And I'm like, I'm not pulling teeth to do it. I'm thinking, wow. But I have to do it with intention. So parents out there, it's so important that we are involved in our kids' lives. We are an example, and we're not going to do it all right, but that we keep working on ourselves, learning from each other, learning from, books, audios, podcasts, from other people's stories, and also with intention helping our kids, with intention finding out, okay, what is it that they like? Okay, I'll try this, I'll try that. Listen to them more, right? But with intention, because the more involved we are, they know we care. And I love the fact the way you said you're not like constricting them. You're allowing them to explore and to be creative. And we want creative minds. We want problem solvers. We want people who are going to take the opportunity to say, well, they should be able to do this better, or maybe I can do it. Maybe I can try. By encourage them. I love the way you said encouraging, and you were encouraged. Your parents encouraged you, and that's probably why you allowed yourself to open your mind to new possibilities, which opened up new doors to new businesses.
It's true. It's true. I mean, I saw that from my father. Um, I saw it from my mom in the sense of what she did around the home as well. I was fortunate enough. My mom was a stay-at-home mom, which is I was lucky. I mean, back then, I guess most of my friends had moms that stayed at home. Uh, but yes, I saw the fact that my dad was motivated, and he had different interests, and I got exposed to stuff. I always tell people, you never know where you're going to see a child where he gets a level of interest. Got a grandchild who started, just picking up pencil, started drawing. He's only 7 years old, but his drawings, I'm looking at him going, wow, this is this is way better than I could ever draw. And basically told the parents, you, just a stepdaughter and her husband, you got to get him some drawing lessons. Like take him to a class because he seems to pick it up and do it on his own. This is something you want to promote. I mean, sometimes you got to be careful. Sometimes parents will be like, "Oh, I don't want my son or daughter to get involved in this or that. I'm not too sure." You never know where that's going to take them. They may get involved in something that may show them something else that they get passionate about. I always say, get them exposed. Take them. There's lots of different places. Take them out to an archery club sometime, or take them out to mini golf, or expose them to. You never know where they're going to go or where their level of interest. But they need to get out. It's tougher now, way tougher now with all the video games and stuff like that. I mean, I never grew up with that sort of stuff. We didn't have it. Nobody had that sort of stuff. We used to just go out and play. It's a lot more difficult now. There's no doubt about it. I see a lot of parents, what they do is they they don't try and cut it off because that's going to be a bit of a challenge, but they restrict the amount of time that they can do on stuff that they don't feel is going to be as beneficial, which is a smart way to do it. Don't stranglehold them so they can't do stuff. To say, hey, yep, you can do some time on this, some time on that to get them out. But unfortunately, it does involve a lot of time and patience with the parents. But it's part of the job. And if you look at it in the sense of also exposing yourself to new stuff and learning, I mean, I like to learn. I mean, I have a friend of mine, my best friend, who's a family doctor, said to me one time, he said, you're the most curious person I know. I said, well, it's true. I like to learn. He says, you always ask questions, but you listen to the answers when people tell you. I said, oh, yeah, I'm fascinated by anything I don't know anything about. So whenever I meet somebody new and they have a job that I don't have any experience with or any knowledge on, I'm always asking, oh, tell me about this, tell me about that. I'm curious about this because I like to learn. And if at all possible, that's the one thing you really try and push into your children is the fact that they want to learn stuff. I mean, I expose my kids to reading very, very early, like very, very early, before they could read. And I would point at the words in the book as I was reading it. And both grew up to be very good, like readers. The one, as a voracious reader, won't go anywhere without a book. So if we're going somewhere and he's going to be in the car, he's carrying a book with him so he can read all the time. You've got to be open to the fact of what they're doing and keeping an eye on it so that you can help foster sort of that enthusiasm and getting involved stuff. I tell people all the time, you should be passionate about something. You should be passionate about something. It doesn't matter what it is, but you should be passionate about it because that will foster more drive and motivation to get involved in other things.
Love that. Be passionate about something. So parents out there, be passionate about something, get involved, and I know it's busy. Time. It's hard sometimes, but do it with intention. It'll be worth it. It'll be worth it. Thank you so much for joining us. I really enjoyed hearing from you, Richard, and hearing your stories and hearing all the great things you've done. And I'm sure there's more great things ahead. Um,
Always.
always. Love it, love it. Thank you so much. And parents
You're
out,
very welcome.
parents, remember, you make a difference.